Obviously, it's only a few weeks now until Punch in the Sky is out. Um, it's been the traditional wait for a new Armored Saint album, but from what I've heard so far, it's proving to be worth it. Both the music videos were excellent. There's two songs that were made into music videos, I should say. They were really, really good.
Thank you.
Lyrically, what did you hope to accomplish with this album?
Well, I'd say the thing I was trying to do lyrically is to kind of touch on different topics, of course, and anything I've done in the past. And I think key thing is just to try not to repeat myself. I think that's always the thing that I aspire to do, whether it's topics or themes or um, words themselves. Um, there's a lot of things out in the world to choose from to write about. In particular, right now, a very large array of topics
Yeah,
that we're currently living in, and everything was done before even the COVID thing happened. So like that didn't even come into fruition as far as or come into play in terms of of having another idea to write about because we were already done recording. So
yeah,
um, but I think it's there's a lot of social commentary stuff in there, but I try to write in a way where I'm not being so specific.
mm,
I want people to read between the lines. I want to have some sarcasm. I think there's opportunities for some humor for sure. Um, uh, Deeper stuff when it's necessary. Always kind of touching on just trying to be a better person and trying
mm,
to say that I hope society is becoming better, and that's a challenge. Um,
mm.
but there's a lot of different things that I wanted to or was able to write about when it came to this album, and um, I have a I have a book of lyrics and phrases and stuff, and when I use one, I'll like put a check next to it, and then when the
Mhm.
record is done, I'll like just cross them out. And on this particular time, I crossed out a lot of things. So I have to think of a lot of a lot more ideas now because I used a lot of them.
Yeah, cool. But plenty of time until the next one. So
Right, 5 years, right?
yeah. But as I spoke to Joey a couple of weeks ago, and I was saying, I think Armored Saint fans are quite mature about the band in that they respect you've all got things going on, and that it might take a while for each album, but every time it comes out, it's worth it. So
you know, sorry, this big truck's driving by and I'm sitting on my porch. Let me let him pass.
no problem.
Perfect world is, of course, we would do things quicker. I marvel at some of my favorite bands in the '70s, how they put out a record every year. It was crazy. I can't believe how they did that because I know they played and they toured and they still made records every year.
Yeah,
It's just remarkable and amazing records, of course. But for whatever reason, that's just not. I don't think it's only our scenario. I think it's a lot of bands'
mm,
scenarios that it just takes longer. Maybe people do longer tours. I don't know what the
mm,
reasons are. I'm sure they vary from band to band, of course. But I think the key is what I always kind of say, and I've said it before, so you may have heard me say this. I'm sorry to be redundant, but it's the quality of it because the record is the thing that lives on.
mm.
Playing shows, I love performing and all those things, but it's a fleeting moment, and you remember the moment, but you're not like living. It's different from a record. A record is something that's part of you. Is something that you listen to often, and it's something that the songs become they affect different parts of your life and different times in your life. So I think it
Yeah,
has to be the best. And you know, it's not like we're some band who tours nonstop and by putting records out, it just continues enable us to continue to tour and stuff. It's just not how we are, and it's not the way we work anyway. So, um, you know, we have 8 records, I guess technically minus the 12 years I was in Anthrax, even though we did put Revelation out during that time. So we did
yeah,
do one. I guess we could have maybe an additional 5 to 7 more records.
Hmm.
I guess maybe in a perfect world, but this is what we got.
Yeah, but again, I think it's better to have the time spent on a record and make sure that it is as good as it can be. You know, obviously a lot of bands, like you say, back in the 70s and that were releasing sometimes 2 albums a year. But I also think after a while, a lot of those bands got burnt out.
Right.
So I would rather just have a band that takes its time. I mean, again, there was a 10-year gap in between Revelation and La Lassa, and Left Hook from Right Field is my favorite Armored Saint song. So
That's
it
cool.
just,
Thank you.
no
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah.
but it goes to show it's worth the wait. I think.
I think I think in the end is we just want the songs to be the best they can be.
Yeah.
And again, we kind of coincided with other aspects of our lives. And I guess if Armored Saint was more of a profitable band and we could just do nothing else and not have like day jobs, so to speak, we would be able to maybe make things happen quicker. But it has to coincide with other ways to earn a living and stuff. So, and I've got kids, and whatever. So, and so does Joey, and so does Phil. So, we make it work. And I think when it's all said and done, we'll look back and go, great albums. That's the key.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, speaking of great albums, how does the new album compare to When Hands Down? What's evolved since then?
Well, I think When Hands was a nice stepping stone to this. I think that every previous record is a stepping stone to the next one. It just kind of opens you up to what you could do differently, or some of the similarities, and how you can build on those. And I loved Win. I think it was an amazing record. So I think that we just kind of wanted to take it a little bit further. We wanted the songs to be a little bit more concise, although we start the song with the album with the longest track. So it's kind of funny. But, in the end, I think we try to be a little bit more direct with our approach than we were with, say, a lot of Win. But we use some of the same people in the recording process, Bill Matoyer and Jay Rustin, and he mixed it, and Josh Newell, who's the guy who did the drum editing. And so we had a good team and we wanted to keep going on that. So, it's, I think the key for us is making music that sounds like our music, the true origins and the roots of what our band is. We're a metal/hard rock band, but make it sound contemporary with the time. So that's the goal. That's the objective. I love, of course, all our earlier records, but I don't want to make a record that sounds like it came out in 1985. We have to make it sound like it sounds like Armored Saint, but in this year. And I think that's the objective every time, and I think we accomplished that.
It shows a good level of artistry as well. If you're willing to challenge yourself with every album to push yourselves forward, not just to be contemporary, as it were, but to stick to your guns while doing so. So it's like a challenge every time. So I think that shows artistic integrity. So.
Well, we are fortunate that the record company, they believe in us, and so they let us to kind of do our thing. And I think we sent stuff to Brian, and he was like, "Yeah, sounds great." So that wasn't always the case in the '80s. There was a lot of pushing and pulling with record company people and getting them on board, and that was the nature of the '80s and being on a major record company.
Yeah.
And we don't need to experience. We don't need to worry about that anymore. It's not what's happening. Plus, I just think we're better. So I think he believes in us. And Tracy is, she's the president of the label, and she's Joey's wife, and she would give her 2 cents. Believe me, she's a spitfire, and she would have no qualms about telling us something. But I think she believes in it. So, I think we're honest with ourselves. We think we know what we can do, and we know the parameters of it all. But we also want to push it. We want to push it. And if something is outside the box too far, I think we'd be honest with ourselves and say, okay, man, that's not going to work. But just by always willing to push, always trying different things, different approach, different instruments, those are the kind of things that I think just kind of, it just broadens the sound of the band, and I think it just helps us.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, Metal Blade there, and I believe you started out on Metal Blade before going to Chrysalis. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
1983.
yeah, so what is it about Metal Blade and the relationship between them and Armored Saint that seems so tight knit?
Well, Brian obviously signed us to our first deal, which was which turned out to be, well, First Metal Massacre 2, and then we made the EP that came out in '83, and then at that time, I have to be honest and say most bands, especially in the LA area, were striving to use an indie to get to a major. I think that was everyone's goal, and we were the same. And so even when we left, Brian always supported us, even through those years at Chrysalis. He was always a fan and always behind us. He could have been pissed. He could have been said, screw those guys, they left me," but he didn't. And then when we got dropped, and we were writing the songs that would eventually be for Symbol Salvation, he was in, and he was saying, "I love this. I want you to put the record out with me." And we were like, "Thank you. We save us," basically. So, and he did. And then it was just the beginning of the place where, it was home, and it just felt right. And there was no reason to ever think any other way. So, how would our career have been if we stayed on Metal Blade that whole time? I don't know. I don't know. I really have no idea. All I know is that that wasn't the case, so it's irrelevant. It's just, this is the way the road went, and now here we are. But every record's been with Metal Blade, and the cool thing is that we actually just did a deal with UMG, or is it whatever they're called now, because it's not Chrysalis anymore, and all the labels have kind of merged into almost one big label, which is insane. It's not like quite like that, but in any case, it's what Chrysalis has become. And we worked out a deal with them where they basically keep the records, because at 35 years you can actually get your records back. And March of the Saint is that past that now. So we worked out a deal with the first 3 records where they still keep them. They kind of improved our streaming revenues. They're allowing Metal Blade, or whoever it is, and I'm sure it's going to be Metal Blade, to relicense the records. They're going to let them make some vinyl of it. So we're really excited about that, because we just, all I ever want is just my records to be available. That's I don't think that's asking too much. It's just that's something I struggle with my records in Anthrax. Or just like, look, just make them available. That's all I ask. Because if they're not available, you can't get it. But and I've heard rumblings of those records being re-released. I don't know if that's true or not, because I've heard it from not the source of the band, but from the outside source. But I heard that that Nuclear Blast is re-releasing those first 4 records, so that I did with Anthrax. So I'm happy about that. I hope it happens. And again, that's all we want. I mean, to me too, I love vinyl. I actually love CDs. But whatever anybody wants to listen to music, whatever particular method, just listen to it. Listen to whole records from front to back, I think. And metal fans do that. They're not pop people that want to hear a single. They want to hear a whole record. So we're lucky with that. But there's nothing like vinyl. The cover and this gatefold. And to me, it's the best. And Metal Blade has been doing an amazing job, in particular with this album, doing some really cool colored vinyls, and they just do really cool packaging.
Cool. I've pre-ordered the album, but it will be digital, just because I don't have the space for anything.
Fair enough.
Physical.
Like I said, whatever means exactly. You use.
As long as you get it, but as long as you pay for it, it's.
Well, I mean, I don't know why this method happened not too long ago, where all of a sudden it seemed like for people to buy music was offensive or something. It's like, it should be free. I'm like, well, why? Well, why is anything free? There's nothing. What's free? And I can't go to the Ford dealer and go, yeah, I want it. I'll take it. I'll just take it. Or I can't go into like a drugstore and just take a candy bar. I mean, then you're a thief and you're a criminal. So not implying that everyone that still takes music as that, but I mean, it costs money to make it. This is the revenue for bands to earn a living. So I don't understand it's very perplexing to me that why people all think the people that do music should just be free. I don't adhere to that, but hey,
No,
well, I'm
but,
old school.
yeah, but I think people have like preconceptions in that. And it's still a little bit like when Jason Newsted launched his eponymous band a while ago. They were only able to get out an EP and an album, and they had to fold the band basically because they just couldn't afford to keep it going because people were stealing the music or whatever. So, and you think for a man who everyone perceives as being like super rich rock star, then it just shows how much people need to support the bands. You know?
Right, exactly. I mean, it was funny because I remember when the whole Napster thing happened and Metallica was really supporting the fight against it, and people were giving them a lot of grief, but they were
Yeah,
already rich. They weren't even probably doing as much for themselves as actually for everybody else, because they were like, hey man, we already sold all these records, and of course they're going to continue to sell more new generations, and people want a different version, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, I think they were trying to help everybody else and making sure everybody gets paid accordingly. So,
yeah,
the music business, it definitely kind of dropped the ball in the way they handled, the way the digital world developed. I think they weren't ready, and it just overloaded them, and they weren't prepared. And I don't think that was something that was probably handled very well, quite frankly.
mm. I think it's a very difficult thing to handle though because at the time it was probably such a new idea, and people didn't really know how to market digital albums or anything like that. So,
Right, that's
yeah.
true.
But I
Yeah,
was 10 years
absolutely.
older than that, so I don't know.
Well, they say that streaming, they're trying to find out better ways to, profit the artist, and I hope they do that. And
Mm.
again, that some people do that. Some people pay $10 for a streaming service for a month, and they want to get whatever they can. And again, it's great as long as royalties are distributed. I think that's all artists ever want, of course.
Yeah, yeah. One way that you're promoting the album, which of course will be quite difficult to do because of the COVID situation, but one way you are promoting it is in a couple of days' time having the live streamed show.
Correct. Yeah.
Um, now, I think it's either in a venue or it's in like an airplane hangar or something like that, isn't it?
It's at the Whiskey a Go Go, which is a famous club here in Hollywood,
Yeah,
and we played it many times. And it's cool because we could kind of contribute to them because they're trying to keep afloat, of like many venues throughout the world.
yeah,
Um, so it's fun. It's a hometown gig. I mean, it's literally like 10 minutes from my house, so it'll be easy to. I could ride my bike there, although there's a big hill, so I don't think I want to do it. But um, it's a great venue. It's a legendary, and they've worked out a deal where they can stream it and record it, and they put in like a little studio in there, so it's great. And it's gonna be it's gonna be unusual. It's gonna
yeah,
be awkward. It's not certainly a normal gig, that's for sure. It's gonna be almost a little bit more like a glorified rehearsal, with almost like a little bit of a video shoot because you're playing the cameras really. Um,
yeah,
I have a lot of banter that I usually normally like to goof around with the audience as far as talking between songs. And I never really have anything kind of scripted. I try to just kind of speak off the cuff, so that'll be a challenge for me to see how I can talk to a camera with not really
yeah.
engaging people eye to eye. So it's a little, I guess it's cool in a way because it's challenging. But in the end it'll be fun. We're playing some new songs. We're going to play some deep tracks, of course, some popular ones, Left Hook. So I mean, it'll be a fun show.
Good, good. Well, I've got my tickets. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Um, if I may, I'd like to talk to you about a subject which I don't think you can avoid in any interview, which is Anthrax.
Okay.
Don't worry, I'm not going to dwell on anything negative. But there's been rumblings recently about, in a couple of years, maybe once everything's calmed down, that you're planning to hit the road to perform the Bushwhack's material, as it were. Is there any truth to this, or is it something you'd like to do?
It was something that and kind of between me and my agent a few years back, we kind of toyed with the idea a little bit, excuse me. And and we put some feelers out. I don't think we really were probably getting the response that we were happy with, so we kind of just put it on the burner. Maybe the timing wasn't right. So I don't know. It's something that I think would be a cool thing to do. I don't envision like doing some long, um, uh, detailed tour. You know, it should be more limited to a handful of shows here and there. I think that would make it more special and more fun. So you know, again, it's an idea. What I always say is that it's a band. I'd have to put the band together, so a lot of the work would be on me, and I can be a little. I don't think I'm lazy, but I can be a little. That sounds a little daunting to me.
Yeah.
So I'd have to like get in the right mindset to do it. Again, maybe that's a good thing because then it would be challenging me. Anything that's, you know, out of the box is a good thing. But yeah, you know, I do love a lot of those songs. I think there's some really great material there throughout all the records, and I'm proud of my years in Anthrax. You know, um, we had some great memories and great shows and fun times.
Yeah, I mean that's some of my favorite music ever. Is your period with Anthrax? I mean, even we mentioned Nuclear Blast earlier. I first found out about Nuclear Blast by looking at the back of the "We've Come for You All" CD. I
That's
was like,
funny.
oh, that's a pretty cool label, and then they've like blown up since.
Right.
Uh,
Wow, that's funny.
yeah,
Yeah, well,
and
they were great. They're a great label, of course. They do a fine job in Europe and the States, and you know, I'm sure worldwide. And they did a great job for "We've Come for You All," actually.
yeah,
So, you know, we'll see what happens. You know, certainly, I'm not getting any younger, so maybe, you know, time is not necessarily on my side per se. I always think of terms of a slight urgency. That's, I think, I kind of how we approached making the Saint record. Like, I don't say this with complete seriousness, but I always say that, you know, maybe this is the last thing, because I think it pushes you. If you have that mindset, it pushes you to really pull out everything you got. And you know,
yeah,
I ain't 30, so I mean, it could be, you know, it's possible. So I'm not saying that with any kind of like threat or fear, or, but you know, it's just the reality of my age and where I'm at. So you never know. So I think these are the things that I should take seriously enough to say, well, I can see myself doing that in 10 years. I don't think I have that luxury. So, you know,
yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I personally would love it to happen. I'd love it if it could come to Europe, but again, you have to look at logistics, things like that. I understand that. But I mean, like a tiny personal story from me is when the first festival I went to was Download in 2005, and I was so happy because you had Megadeth on Friday, Anthrax on Saturday, and Slayer on the Sunday. And then a couple of months before it happened, Anthrax announced the Among the Living lineup, and I was so angry that I nearly didn't go. I was so
Wow.
pissed off. They got John Bush. What's happening with John Bush? And he's like, so I was like, for that day, I was just sulking like a little kid. I was just,
Well, I'm glad I hope you win. And I'm sure, you know, the Mama
oh,
Living
I
Life
went and had a great
is a
time,
great
but
classic record. And so,
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure it was awesome. But
yeah,
yeah,
it was
that
great.
was around the
But
time we parted ways. So,
yeah, of course. But initially it was just Anthrax, and then all of a sudden it was Anthrax Among the Living. I mean, and then unfortunately, when you did Nebworth, I couldn't afford to go at that time. So, and I've still not seen Ahmed Saint either. So at some point,
oh,
once
wow.
I want all this to calm down, just so Ahmed Saint can come over. You know?
Well, and we want to. We definitely are due for a tour of Britain, Europe, and you know, we want to. We love that. We love always coming over to see overseas into Europe, and you know, it's just the crowds are amazing, and you know, we feel kinship with the people there, and so you know, I don't know. I was reading. Actually, I was reading the BBC News right now because I read it periodically just to get a different spin on things, and the numbers for the whole COVID thing are not real promising, unfortunately. Not only in Britain also in Germany and other areas of Europe. So I was
Yeah,
disappointed, but I got my fingers crossed, and I don't know, man. It's a really crazy time right now, especially here in the States, and you know, the
yeah,
election's coming up, and it's, you know, I'm hoping the Earth can take it. You know, I really do.
yeah, yeah. We'll see. But yeah, there's a couple of minor things I wanted to ask you about. I've always wanted to ask you about just before we wrap up. And one is that I've read a few times that you did voiceovers for a Burger King advert, and I've never been able to find it, so I was never sure if it was true or just a rumor or something like that.
Yeah, I did for about a 3-year period. I was the tag voice guy. It was a great job. It was really sad when it ended, but those things do. But yeah, it was a fun run, and I did a lot of really cool radio and television spots. If you tie, you could. It's a brief tag that I did, but if you YouTube Burger King Simpsons movie trailer or Simpsons movie commercial, because it was tied in with the Simpsons and Burger King, and I did the last part of that. That's one you can look at and hear my voice, and that was really amazing because it was the Simpsons and it was Burger King, and it was really awesome to be part of that. So I did lots of them. There was many. It was like a Spider-Man promotion. You just have to YouTube it. I don't know if it would come up like if you YouTube like John Bush, Burger King, but you'd have to kind of look around. But if you hear, and maybe those years, like it was like 6 to 9, but if you'd have to do a little research on your own, but you would hear my voice and you would know for sure. But it was fun. It was great. It's a great thing to do. I love voiceover, and it's a very competitive world. A lot of actors do it, like big actors. So it's kind of hard to compete with, Gene Hackman and, Robert Downey Jr. And it's like, dudes, come on, man, you got your other job. But it's the way it is. They go, wait a minute, I could go into the studio in my sweats and do a couple of tags and make a lot of money. So they do it. And it's fun, but it's a cool thing. It's just another way to use my voice. And I thought it was, I'm a singer, so making that transition seemed like it was normal. It seemed like it was an easy one, and it's fun to do.
Cool. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was, and I only found this out in this past week, is you did some vocals for the Metal Gear Rising game. Now, I'm a big Metal Gear fan. I've actually got the second one on right now.
Oh, that's funny.
Now before the interview. How did that job come about?
Yeah, that was guy by the name of Jamie Christopher who did the music for that. He was kind of he oversaw it and the whole soundtrack, and he also wrote a bunch of songs for it. And I to tell you the truth, I really don't remember how I got connected with him, but he found me, and I did, I think, 2 songs, and it's so weird because I just recently was cleaning my garage, which I need to do again because it's a mess. And I was going through some stuff, and I found that, and I only had it on just a CD. It said Metal Gear Rising, and I was like, "Oh, let me listen to these songs." I haven't heard them. I don't have them like on my iPod or anything, which I probably should do. I still have an iPod, and it's kind of prehistoric at this point now. But yeah, it was a fun project to do. It was again, anytime you play with different people, for me, the way I look at it is it kind of brings out something else in me. So doing that was cool because it was this person I've never worked with, obviously. The songs almost have this kind of industrial feel to them, which is cool. And they're brief. They're only like a couple minutes long, I think. And both of them. But it was fun. It was a cool project, working with different musicians. Like I said, it just kind of brings out something else in you. And I always embrace that. Just like I did the Metal Allegiance thing, which was really fun. I only did the one song on the second Metal Allegiance record, but I did some touring with those guys. And I mean, kind of playing with Dave Ellison and Andreas Kisser and Mike Portnoy and Alex Skolnick. I mean, those guys are awesome, So, and playing with those different people, it's just, again, it's like, oh, these are new musicians. They play differently, and it just kind of brings out something else differently in you. So Mark Mengi, who put it all together, is instrumental in the whole Metal Allegiance thing. And we had some fun shows, sang with, different singers, Troy and Mark from Death Angel and Mastodon, who was an amazing band. So, anytime you can do something different than what you're normally doing, I think is a good thing. It just it enables you to kind of think differently.
To use the iPod slogan.
What's that?
To use the iPod slogan.
Yes, well, the iPod. I love my iPod. It's funny. There's this like Jewish Orthodox guy who works at his garage and he fixes them, who lives kind of near me. And like, if I break it, I'm like, oh no, my iPod. And I'll take it to him and he repairs it. He's like this whiz with it. It's pretty funny. It's like in his garage. It's kind of a weird environment. He's very religious, but he's works on the iPod and it's funny. But I do like it because that's, you know, I want to use my phone for my phone and I don't really use it for music. So,
Yeah.
And I have a lot of songs on the iPod. So,
yeah. John, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today, man. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Oliver. Appreciate it, man. And thanks for all the support and be safe
No
there in
worries.
Britain. And hopefully 2021, we'll see you.
I hope so, man. And
Right.
until then, I'll look forward to the show on Saturday.
All right, great. Have fun with it. See
You
you
too.
soon. Be safe.